Welcome to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Krocmalnek. Together, we'll explore the art of turning tiny seeds into a thriving microgreens empire, sharing insights, coveted secrets, and strategic wisdom from building one of Canada's largest microgreens farms. Stay tuned for thought-provoking conversations with leading figures in the world of microgreens. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. My name is Jonah, and I founded one of Canada's largest microgreens farms, growing over 250,000 microgreens trays in my farming career. And I'm on a mission to help growers and farmers like you grow more food with less resources and make their farms lean profit machines. On today's AMA, we're going to touch on how to encourage customers to use more products with recipes and newsletters, tips and tricks for the quick cut greens harvester, how to prevent burnout while building your microgreens farm, how to determine the right stem length for your crops, and so much more. Let's get right into it. So the first question is, how often do you revisit or update your crop recipes, and what factors influence those changes? I would say in general, microgreens are such a fast growing crop that you're going to be making changes to how you grow it in the first few years quite often. And you're going to learn a lot in the process. So I use this weakest link model a lot, where whatever the weakest link in the chain of factors of growing microgreens will be the determining factor of the best you can grow your microgreens. So if you're growing a crop and it's getting too much water, but you have amazing lights and the perfect seeding rate and a great humidity and temperature for the crops, and everything is perfect except the watering, how your watering is going to influence the crop in the biggest way. So those are the factors that will influence a crop: is your seeding rate, how long you're growing the crop for, what lights you're using, your soil recipe, how often you're watering, temperature and humidity, CO2, which you generally don't need to worry about for microgreens. But those are the factors that influence how your crops grow. So over time, you may realize, oh, I was overwatering the crops or underwatering the crops, and you have this new information. Once you have some sort of new information that changes a specific crop you're growing, it's a great idea to test it on all crops. And the reverse situation is that you try growing a crop in the past, let's say arugula, and it was a really big struggle. You had a lot of disease, or you just couldn't get the yield you wanted. But now you've improved this, the way you water. Now is a great time to test out growing that crop again. So sometimes when you have crops that may have not performed as well as you would have liked, once you have this new information that you've done through just R&D testing, apply that to that crop and see what happens. I've been shocked at some of the results of this. Like sometimes you think, oh, I've already tried this, but you don't realize that you changed this, and that during that time period between the last time you tried this crop and now. So it's a great thing to get in a routine of maybe doing it annually or twice a year, because microgreens grow so fast. It's a good idea to do these tests more frequently. Whereas, if you're growing tomatoes and, you only get 1 or 2 crops a year sort of thing, it's going to be hard to do this kind of testing. So that's the beautiful thing about microgreens, is you can always improve, revisit, and update your crop recipes with the new information you've gathered because of how fast the crop cycle is. So every year to 6 months, roughly that time frame is a pretty good time frame to retest these crop recipes that you're using for your microgreens crops. The next question is, how do you prevent burnout both for yourself and your team while running a labor-intensive microgreens business? So this is a great question, and it's a common theme I see among microgreens growers. A lot of farms are running bootstrap operations where they kind of just built everything themselves. Like I did that at the beginning. I know most farmers do that. They don't hire some big corporate team to figure out how to best hire people and how to train them and what to implement their business for long-term success. It's usually you just kind of get a sense of it. Some people do consulting with people like me or other coaches in the industry, which is a huge help. So I would say that is one of the ways you can prevent burnout, is planning in advance. So you could do it on your own. It's just when you have someone that's already done it, it just speeds up that process. So the main things are making sure that you have a plan in place before you get too busy, that all you have time for is to run the business. Because if all you can do is day-to-day run the business and you don't have time for anything else, you're going to find yourself in a very difficult position that's most likely going to lead at some point to burnout. And if it doesn't lead to burnout, you are superhuman in some way. And a lot of farmers are superhuman. But is that really the lifestyle you want to have for you or your family in the long run? I don't want to speak for anyone, but like I personally, wouldn't want that. I want to have more balance and also have time to figure out how I want to run the business better. And if you're in the day to day all the time, doing seeding and soil mixing and harvesting and delivering and dealing with orders, if you're doing that stuff on a daily basis, it's going to be a lot harder to create systems that will be beneficial and be more efficient, which therefore would lead to a higher profit for your business with less work. So that's the benefits of doing this work in advance. If for people that are in a position where time is their biggest limiting factor, I'd say the best thing to do is to purchase the equipment that allows you to automate specific tasks that take up a lot of your time. So that's the easiest way, because you can just pay for efficiency, which is a great starting point. If money is more of a limiting factor than time, then creating systems to do things more efficiently. That's how you pack, how you get your customers, how you keep your customers, how you as much as you can manually improve certain things with harvesting and mixing soil and stuff like that. So there are some improvements that can be done, but not at the same level as having equipment. And then generally some people will find themselves in the middle where it makes sense to start implementing automation equipment like the seeder or harvester that are low cost and have a high payback period or quick payback period, and then do some of the improvements in operations in terms of how you hire people, how you train people, something as simple as how you're packaging the greens, how you're selling the greens. Do you have a standing order model? Are you just like letting anyone order whatever they want and then kind of working backwards and kind of scrambling last minute? There's so many different things that saying yes to can be problematic. And then also at the same time, saying no to things can also not lead to opportunities. So it's really important to understand what things you would make sense for you to do. And it's a lot easier to do this before you run out of time, because once you run out of time and all you're doing is the day to day, you don't have time to think about everything else. You don't have time to think about how do you want to improve the business, because you're just in survival mode. So you want to prevent yourself from getting in survival mode. One can be implementing automation solutions before you get to the point of running out of time or getting close to running out of time. And then another is just creating that plan when you're small and you have that free time to do that. So highly, highly recommend that. I've said this many times. The biggest reason microgreens farms stop operating is not profitability. It's a very profitable business to run. You can run into issues like of profitability if you're not fully understanding your numbers. But generally speaking, it's burnout. It's being so tired from the day to day because systems, automation, with software, with how you actually grow the crops are not implemented, and it can really wear out on someone year in, year out. So those are some really great ways to prevent that and allow you to have one, a more profitable business. In my opinion, the most important thing, a much better lifestyle for your business and for yourself. And then also make it easier for you to run the business in the long run. The next question is, at what point does it make sense to use the harvester instead of harvesting by hand? So we have a cluster of questions about the harvester. The first one is, when does it make sense to switch to using the harvester than doing it by hand? I'm often very surprised at how few farms are using the harvester. It is such a quick payback period and makes life so much easier on one of the biggest bottlenecks of microgreens farming, which is harvest days. So you have seeding, soil mixing days, which are a big bottleneck. And then you planting days, and then you have harvest days. Those are the two main tasks of running a microgreens business. And to do it by hand, it doesn't make, in my opinion, much sense from a pure business perspective. So honestly, from anywhere from 20 to 30 trays, it starts making sense to have the harvester, which is a rack to like a rack and a half. So it's a very small amount of production. I would imagine most people listening to this would be growing at close to that, or if not at least that much, now is a great time to invest in the harvester. It'll pay for itself in such a short period of time. It'll save you a lot of time on harvest days, which is a big bottleneck. And it'll be more consistent because you can choose the height. Whereas eventually, if you ever hire staff or have family or friends helping, it's a lot harder to get them to harvest the same length every time. So it's much easier to just get someone to be like, okay, 2 inches, put the harvester at that height, cut it, boom, it's done. So 20, 30 trays is generally the point I'd recommend getting the harvester. And just keep in mind that, if you're growing 20 or 30 trays now, are you planning to grow 20 or 30 trays in a year, in 2 years, or are you planning to grow more? If you're planning to grow more, it makes the decision even easier because the more you grow, the faster it pays for itself, the more time you're saving using this type of equipment. So it's not just about where you're at now, it's about where you plan to be at in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years. Because if you're going to buy it in a year, and it's a relatively small investment that you can afford, why would you not buy it now? Because you're going to get all those accumulated labor savings and time that you can use to grow the business. And you, as the business owner, are the most valuable resource in the business, and your time is the most valuable. So it should be used for things like sales, improving efficiency and operations of the business. And those things have a much higher return on investment than just manually harvesting greens that you can have machinery do, and then eventually have staff do that work for you. The next question is, how do you go about cleaning the next question is, how do you go about cleaning the quick cut greens harvester? So there's two components. There's the blade section, and then there's the general hopper and tines that kind of spin as it's harvesting. So for the blade, I found the best thing is you can buy it's like almost like a reverse vacuum. It's like a small handheld tool that just blows, like it's not compressed air, but it blows strong enough force of air, almost like a hair dryer, but stronger, that you can get all the greens and residue off of the blade, as well as off of the hopper area and any other spots on the harvester. So that's in my opinion, the best way to quickly clean it, because if you do it by hand with like just paper towel or towel or something like that, where the blade is, there's a lot of nooks and crannies that it's really important to clean out. So that air blower just makes it a lot easier. And then the second step is disinfecting the quick cut greens harvester. So I prefer Zerotol, which is an organic, allowed for organic production. It's a hydrogen peroxide and vinegar, and that does a very good job of disinfecting. There's lots of farms that have gotten the harvester like it's used in a farm that has GAP certification or HACCP. So that's a thing that people always ask me, is like, how do you use this if you're going to scale into that type of business? And that's totally fine. There's lots of farms that have gotten that certification with the harvester. You just have to, you're more likely going to have to dunk the harvester in disinfecting solution rather than just spraying it with like a hose end sprayer sort of thing. So it just might take a little bit more disinfecting solution, but you can totally get those certifications with the harvester. So it's a pretty easy decision in my book. Next part of the question is, do you recommend purchasing the blade sharpener for the harvester? Personally, I don't. So the blades are kind of U-shaped. They're like hooked. And if you're sharpening a flat, straight blade, it's a pretty easy thing to do well. When you have these hooks, you really have to get the angle right. And it's not something that, given how cheap buying blades are, it's not, and how long they last, it's not something that I personally recommend. But if you have the skill set and you've sharpened other, blades that are not just flat blades, by all means, you can definitely use the blade sharpener. In my experience, each blade will last roughly 6 months to a year, depending on how much you're harvesting. So for us, we would harvest, 1,000+ trays a week, sometimes more. And we would change a blade every 6 months. So it's not a big, financial commitment to changing the blade. And it's a pretty quick thing to do. So the blades are relatively cheap. I don't know, maybe they're like end up being about $10, $15 per blade. So it's a relatively cheap thing to change. And having a sharp blade for something like the harvester is really important. because it's going to cut the greens much better and also improve the shelf life. If you're using a dull blade, it's like using a dull knife. Like you're more likely to have the ends go bad faster. So you want to make sure that blade is sharp. And luckily, it stays sharp for quite a long time. And then the last question related to the harvester is, are you packing microgreens directly from the quick cut greens harvester? And do you need to wash the microgreens after harvest? So well, you definitely can harvest them directly or package them directly after harvesting. I found, again, I'm all about efficiency, doing things as with the least amount of time that produces a good quality result. So what I found is if you just harvest all your greens, you can put each individual variety in a bin. So if you get the quick cut greens harvester with the mount, then it's just on a hinge, and you can just dump the greens into some sort of Rubbermaid kind of tote. Put a lid on it, harvest the next crop, and just do that till you're done harvesting all the crops, and then package the greens. So you can package it directly from the harvester. It's just less efficient. So I prefer to harvest everything, package everything, deliver everything, clean everything, deliver everything. So do the same task all together. It's just I found it's more time efficient that way. And then, do you need to wash microgreens after harvest? It depends. Generally speaking, no. If you're growing microgreens in like a soil medium and you're putting either vermiculite on top of the seeds, or you're not putting any soil on top of the seeds, you should not need to wash them. If you're putting soil on top of the seed, like peat moss or coconut coir, it tends to get a lot dirtier. So peat moss tends to crust, and coconut coir has these like long fibers that kind of stick to the greens. So those, if you're top coating with those soil type products, then it's more likely that you'd want to wash them. But generally speaking, it's better not to wash microgreens, because when you wash them, really the challenge is the shelf life gets reduced. So it's really hard to properly dry microgreens after you wash them, which is also why I recommend making sure the crop is bone dry when you harvest it, because it's a lot harder to dry and very time consuming after harvesting, and you risk over drying out the crop as well. The only exception to this would be sunflower. So sunflower microgreens are much better suited to be washed after harvest for the most part. I know there are some growers that will top water the sunflower as they're growing, and then they don't, because it gets kind of cleaned through the process of watering. They don't need to do that. They don't need to clean it after, because most of the soil residue is gone. I personally don't like that method because it's more likely to cause mold, and you probably want to get rid of the seed hulls in an efficient manner anyway. So putting in a sink and either some sort of bubbler or just agitating with your hand will get most of the hulls to float to the top, and then you can just strain them out, which is a much more, in my opinion, like efficient way to clean them and get the hulls off. But that's the only crop that I personally will wash when I grow microgreens. The rest of them stay very clean, and even in some capacity, the harvester helps, because it kind of mixes, it kind of agitates a little bit. And just so people know, a lot of people think that the greens harvester damages the delicate crops like amaranth. That is absolutely not the case. We used it on every crop and it worked great. Even the really dainty kind of small microgreens like amaranth, totally fine. Basil, cilantro. So something to keep in mind for anyone that's like on the fence because they think it's going to damage crops, sort of thing. And it kind of like, because the way it cuts it and then the tines kind of move it, it kind of releases any stuck like seed hulls to a certain extent. And then if you just shake the bin that you harvest in, a lot of the hulls will come off as well. Again, not for sunflower. This is more for like broccoli, the small, more dainty seed hulls. Next question is, did you ever experiment with giving out recipes to customers month by month? So it depends on, of course, your customer type, right? So if you're selling to restaurants, I don't think they're probably a better cook and recipe creator than at least I could be, and what I would imagine, unless you were a chef prior. So, depending on your market, it may not add any value. Of course, if you're selling direct to consumer, and even if you're selling to grocery stores, having some sort of simple recipe newsletter, sort of thing can help keep your customers engaged. And this is a great way to introduce new products and encourage them to use more microgreens. So it could be a smoothie recipe followed by a sandwich kind of sandwich soup, and then a more unusual way to use microgreens, and have like a rotation, and just have like one or two recipes a month that encourages customers to use the microgreens in unique and different ways. I think is a great idea. It's well worth the time to do it. Usually, I'd recommend a tool like ChatGPT for this, and it can be great to create the actual email itself. But for recipes in particular, I'd recommend actually, as much as you can, either getting like verified recipes that there's reviews online, or creating your own that you've actually tested, or a combination of like using ones you found online but actually test them to make sure that they actually do taste good. Because if someone tries a recipe and it's really bad, it's not going to do you service, and it's actually probably going to do the opposite. It's not going to encourage them to use more microgreens. It's probably going to encourage them to use less. So having good recipes is really important for something like this. So normally I'd say like use ChatGPT, let it create some recipes for you. But in this specific scenario, it's a quite important task to be done well. So I would do the research on your own. But it's well worth it to create recipe type newsletters, and you want to find a way to encourage people to give you their email. So if you're selling to grocery stores, maybe you can have like a little thing that has like a link, a QR code that they can put in their email, and they can get like a free recipe book or something like that. And then you're accumulating these customers' emails, and then now you have a way to contact them that maybe you didn't before. If let's say they were at a farmer's market or a grocery store, you had no way to really contact them. Now you can. And that is extremely valuable, whether you want to sell direct to them in the future, let them know new stores in the area that have the product, send them recipes that encourage them to use the product. There's an unlimited marketing opportunity once you have access to customers or potential customers' emails. So you want to find a way to accumulate that over time, and recipe booklets are a great way to do that. Next question, is there a good resource for nutrient content of the most popular varieties of microgreens? So this is great. This ties into the ChatGPT thing I was talking about. So this is a better use case for ChatGPT. I actually did this recently where I just put in, can you provide a nutrient label for kale microgreens? And then it would create one for you. And then you can say like, what are the unique health benefits of this specific microgreen. So you can gather like which phytonutrients it has, and you can put it in and then you can reformat in whatever way you want, whether it's a nutrient label or it's just like a post or a blog about it. So ChatGPT is generally pretty accurate for stuff like that. I would double check it with some other sources just to be safe, because you don't want to like put out misinformation. Yeah, there's certain use cases that are great for ChatGPT, and there's other ones that aren't. In my opinion, for example, if you just like tried to follow a full growing recipe from ChatGPT, it's going to take like the amalgamation of all the information online, and a lot of the information is very outdated with microgreens. Like a lot of people don't grow with fertilizer, which in my opinion doesn't make any sense, because what other crop do you not grow fertilizer? And we've shown in our analysis of comparing microgreens grown with and without added nutrients, how big of a difference it can be in the nutrient density and nutrient content of those microgreens. So, that information is not really well established out there. I hope to change that, and then hopefully ChatGPT will eventually be more accurate with that. But just to keep in mind that it's got its good use cases, but there's some things that I wouldn't recommend to use it for, because it's just not going to give you high quality information. It's got to be good information to provide good recommendations for you. So yeah, ChatGPT, and then you can compare it to another like Grok or Gemini or one of those other ones. And then if you want, you can do some back research to verify that information. And ChatGPT, you can get the sources from where it's getting that information, so you can make sure that it's a source that you would want to use. Last question for today is, can you provide a source or list for the best ideal stem length to cut for each variety? This is a great question. I think I wish I can give you a cut kale at 2 inches, cut broccoli at 2.25 inches. The challenge is that It's a ratio of leaf size to stem length. So it's not solely just the stem length. The larger the leaf, the larger the leaf, the more stem looks good on a crop. Whereas the smaller the leaf, the less stem looks good and looks like a high quality microgreen. So it's really a proportionate type of thing. So the best way that I would recommend to see what is considered a good stem length and a high quality microgreen is Johnny's Select Seeds on their website. If you just search whatever microgreens, so if you want like red Russian kale, microgreens, they have a picture of like an individual microgreen, and that will give you a great idea. I think they've done a great job of having a good ratio for a vast majority of the crops they have on their website. So it's a great resource to get a sense of like, how large should the leaves be compared to the stem. I generally prefer to grow crops until they get to a point where they start getting the true leaf at the very least. So the cotyledons get to the full size potential that they can. Whereas, if you grow really, really densely, they can stay really small. And therefore, like you're going to like the only way to get a good yield is to have really long stems, which is not the way I personally like to grow. Because it's just, you have the nutrients are in the leaf, not in the stem for the most part. So the larger the leaf proportion, the more nutrients and more high quality product. And you'll find this out very easily when you start, if you sell to restaurants or want to sell to more and more restaurants. They are very particular with that. And they're a great way to hone in your stem length skills, because they'll be straight up with you and tell you like, this is not a good quality product. And then that'll help you learn. So as much as restaurants can be tough sometimes to work with directly, that's in my opinion, a great way to learn. So it's I get a good way to look from a challenge into an opportunity. So that's it for today's episode, guys. If you want to submit any questions, you can do so on YouTube, on Instagram, or just email directly, and it'll go into the next Q&A. So feel free to reach out with your questions. And thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. To access a wealth of insights, just click the subscribe button, stay notified about each new episode, and enjoy all of this wisdom for free. If you're ready to supercharge your microgreens business, visit microgreensconsulting.com for a gold mine of guides and resources. We've transformed thousands of microgreens businesses, and you're invited to join the success story. Let's stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Microgreens Consulting for exclusive content and expert tips and wisdom. If you found this episode insightful, please leave us a review, spread the word, and let's share microgreens magic with the world. Until next time, let curiosity fuel your growth, and may happiness be your harvest. Happy growing, everyone.